Okay, so I want to spend some time and go over the type tool again, just to show different options that you can do with the type tool. If I click and hold the T here, I have the horizontal type tool selected. Little help box pops up, lets me know what's going on. If I click and hold it down, I can pick between horizontal and vertical type tool. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick horizontal type tool, click, and it's going to automatically paste a lorem ipsum. It's just like a placeholder font text there for me. I'm going to write this is type. And if I double click over here on layer one, I can highlight the text, or I could just click over and drag to highlight the text. I can come up here and change the color to whatever color I want. On the top here, I can change the font so that it is either Helvetica, or change the point size, right? I can change the point size something fairly larger. 72 points, by the way, equals 1 inch. So if the font is 72 points, then you're roughly dealing with an inch tall font. I can make a type box and then make it center, right, or left aligned. I can also come over here and use the warp text tool, and I can select if I want to create an arc on my type, if I want to kind of create a shell lower, and then I can also adjust how the text is being distorted, adjusting it in one way or the other, just to kind of animate type. And I can do a flag, or I can do inflate, and then all the adjustments can be done here, as well as something as simple as like an arch, and have it go up. Let's kind of take that vertical distortion down, and I can do it vertical or horizontal. So that's the warp text. So I have these kind of, it works the same way in Illustrator. You have these kind of programmed effects that you can pick from to kind of create some custom type if you want. And that's over here on the text warp or type warp tool. And then I can change the family. Right now it's set up to Helvetica. I can click here, and if I want to, I can grab more fonts from Adobe and go to the cloud, save some favorite fonts, and then also try to grab similar fonts to whatever's highlighted. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and keep Helvetica. What I want to do is show you what you can do with, let's just kind of make this a little bit bigger and move it up a little bit. What you can do with layer styles. So if I click on the text and I come down here to FX, I can add a layer style. So one of the first layer styles that I can add is bevel. Let's kind of zoom in a little bit here. So I can add a inner bevel. I can add an emboss, so it's kind of popping out. I can do a pillow emboss, and I can change the size of it to add more emboss or take some emboss away, soften it up and blur it out or make it hard. I can even do it chiseled, so that it's, instead of smooth, it's kind of a chiseled, hard edged. You can see some of the like chisel marks coming through. I can do chisel soft. And then I can change the angle of the shading. If I want the light to come from the bottom up, so the cast shadow's on the top, I can adjust the shading angle right here in the global light. I can also change the highlight mode from normal to screen, the opacity of the shadow. Right now it's set to multiply. And so I have, those are the different options I have for bevel and emboss. I can do, click down here, do a contour, and then also texture. And at any given time, I can turn it off too. So that's the cool thing about working with layer styles, is they're non-destructive. So I can come down and create a stroke if I want to add a stroke around the text. And I can change the color of the stroke, make it, I don't know, like something bright green maybe. And then the opacity of it, super hard edged or soft. Change the blend modes, maybe something normal instead of that. And then the opacity of that. And the size, I can change the size. They're really big or just a little bit. Position on the inside, I can do on the outside, or I can do in the center. So it kind of adds a stroke around the text. Change the color, make it more bright. And then also maybe change it more like a yellow green. I can do an inner shadow, and I can do change the color of the inner shadow if I want to, maybe something that's more visible, something lighter. And change the multiply for that, maybe switch it to normal. And the distance, so it's really far away or just a little bit over. Let's make something a little bit easier to read. Pops out a little bit more. And then size, I can increase the size or reduce the size. Let's go back to this really quick and let's change the color to something a little bit more agreeable. Colors to blend mode is to position. Side is to see what center looks like. I can do an inner glow. Let's make the color super bright and change the opacity. Have it be from the center. Adjust the choke. And the size. So it's just a little bit there. It's kind of choking out a little bit of the purple. And I can add a satin filter, make it a little more like shimmery. And I can do a color overlay if I want. Change the color, maybe something super bright red. Change the opacity. I can do a gradient overlay if I want to add a gradient on this. Increase the opacity, increase the scale or decrease the scale. I can do a pattern. I can also do an outer glow. Let's pick something that's super easy to see, like that, and then make the size bigger. Maybe spread the outer glow a little bit less, and then the size a little bit less. Reduce the noise. And let's reduce the opacity of this. It's just a little bit there. I can add a drop shadow and change the distance of the drop shadow, make it look like the type is really far away. Or I can just add just a little bit of that drop shadow and then change the direction of the drop shadow, like the light's coming from a different angle. And then offset it, increase the size, increase the spread, and then also the distance. So just a little bit there. And again, I can always change the angle by grabbing this slider here, changing it if maybe the light's coming from the bottom and then the cast shadow, drop shadows above, or I do a little bit of drop shadow down here. And then I can go okay. And just so we can see this a little bit better, I'm going to double click my background and I'm going to go edit and I'm going to fill my background with, let's do a different color. I'm going to do, oops, not pattern. I'm going to just fill it in with some color. Maybe something obnoxious like purple. Okay, just so we can see what's going on with the text, right? So we can see that the type has changed quite a bit from the normal regular Helvetica. We have outer glow, we have a cast shadow, we have a bevel. And if you notice over here on the right-hand side, we can see the effects. And if we don't want the effects, we can turn the effects off and we can see what the type is by itself without those layer effects. And these are all effects that are non-destructive, meaning we can go back and we can change everything as needed without worrying about destroying the information, because everything can be edited. So let's kind of just move this over. You can see the type there. And if there's something that I don't like, I can always go over here and just click off the bevel, turn the bevel on. I can change the stroke if I don't want the stroke, or the inner glow, turn the inner glow off, keep that on. Let's see, I can go and take away the color overlay, gradient overlay, take the drop shadow on and off. And then I can also come back in and just kind of put certain things in. And if there's something that I'm looking at that I want to change, like for example, that stroke that's barely visible, I'm going to go over here and just double click on the stroke. And it's going to open up my layer style palette where I can come in here and I can change the color and alter the way the stroke looks, maybe increase the stroke size a little bit. And then change it from center. Maybe you can just see what it looks like outside versus inside. I can even change it to a gradient if I want to, and then hit OK. So everything can be completely altered and changed and recombined however I want without losing any information, because we're dealing with non-destructive edits in our layer style panel. And again, that's over here on the FX. So you have to select the type and open up your FX panel to apply the different layer styles onto the type that you're dealing with. This also works for anything on a layer. You can do this on an existing layer. It doesn't have to be text. But the cool thing about this, again, is that we can go in here and change things as needed. We can alter anything that we're dealing with so that we can adjust and change and alter without destroying any information. You'll notice that certain features will interact with other layer styles depending on what's on top and what's on the bottom. So you want to kind of just play with what's happening and how you are either adding or subtracting those layer styles so that you get the desired effect. So when you get a chance, go ahead and write some text out, type out some words, and play with adding layer styles to your text to customize or alter the way they look to get different effects. Now, this is just because you can do this doesn't mean you should. So you should always think about what's best for the design. If something like this or adding a little bit of a drop shadow adds contrast to your type, then that's something that you can maybe take advantage of. But just because you can put a dozen different layer styles on type doesn't mean you should. So think about what's going to work best for the design, but you should also familiarize yourself with the different layer styles and what they do and play around with them, because sometimes you'll find a combination that will solve a design problem in the future, but not necessarily one that you're working on right now. Again, FX layer styles, apply them to a type and see how they can create custom text that way.